Hola, ella es Ria Powers, gracias por acompañarnos en Zona Infinito. Ria es especialista en terapias de vidas anteriores. Usted la ha denominado clearing. ¿Qué significa? Ir como despejando lo que nos pasó atrás.
So there are two different things. One is the experience of past lives, which we all seem to be able to access. We have the experience that our soul has been here before. And the other technique that I call clearing is something else. That is when we are attached to the dead or the dead are attached to us. But that is a different experience than our own soul having lived before.
¿Pero usted cree realmente en las vidas anteriores? ¿Existen vidas anteriores?
I've had so much proof of that in my years as a past life therapist that personally I have no doubt. But it doesn't matter if you believe it or not. What is important is that the experience lives inside of us and can be accessed and can affect the present.
Cuando uno pretende tener acceso a lo pasado, uno puede registrar la voz interior. ¿Hay voces interiores de vidas pasadas?
Well, in daily life, in other words, not in a therapeutic session, in daily life we have certain preferences that may have to do with past lives, or we meet somebody and we feel a certain sympathy toward them, or I think what people call love at first sight is actually love at first recognition.
¿Qué pasa con los recuerdos? Los recuerdos de seres que ya no están, ¿pueden estar encarnados también en nosotros?
Can people from, let me see if I understand correctly. The question is, can people who are dead affect the living? Is that the question?
No sé si la palabra es afectar, pero pueden influir.
Yes, especially if we are carrying their energy inside of us, which is possible.
¿Qué significa alguien que puede canalizar estas voces interiores?
Well, that's another category of experience.
A ver.
To channel is to open and access to another dimension of reality where there is another level of information available. It's something people can learn to do. It's something I happened on, something that happened to me. And when you are in that state of consciousness, you have information available that just sitting here talking to you, for instance, I wouldn't have available in my ordinary state of consciousness.
¿Uno necesita tener poderes especiales o necesita estar en un plano superior para poder acceder a ellos?
No, you don't need special powers. And it has nothing to do with my name, for sure. It's simply a capacity that some people are born with, perhaps developed in other lifetimes, perhaps, or you can learn. I have trained hundreds and hundreds of people to channel. It's not special. It's something we are all connected to.
¿Y cuál sería el entrenamiento del alma para poder estar atento a ese proceso? ¿Qué disposición tengo que tener? ¿Qué predisposición tengo que tener? Para poder interpretar, para poder canalizar.
The biggest thing, I suppose, is the capacity to be able to set your personality aside. To not be busy with your own worries or concerns, but to have some distance from your personality state or your ego state. That probably is useful.
Del ego.
Yes.
Del ego. Yo quiero preguntarle, por ejemplo, Ria Powers, en las vidas anteriores, ¿quién fue?
Well, I was many things. I've been in touch with several hundred of my own past life experiences. But the difficulty around past lives is that people use it to reinforce their ego. Oh, I was a high priestess, therefore I'm special. And that has nothing to do with it. You could have had a very...
¿Eso fue usted?
Huh?
¿Esa fue usted?
Oh, sure, of course. But a lifetime that was very simple could have actually been more important for the development of your soul than something that the ego thinks is special.
Claro.
So people unfortunately use past lives to maintain the ego or to inflate the ego. And that is not spiritually useful.
Usted habla en sus escritos y en sus charlas del guardián y el guardián interior. ¿Qué es eso?
Yes, this is what psychologists call the superego. It's the inner critic or the inner judge that judges and evaluates your thoughts, your actions, your appearance, whatever it can judge, it will judge. And it's something that we all have as a part of our psyche. It's part of the mental structure we all carry, and it is developed during our childhood when we are conditioned by our parents, by our teachers, what we should do, what we should not do. This is very useful when you're 4 years old to know not to cross the street without looking both ways. It's necessary. But if you are an adult and someone has given you the opportunity to go skiing and you say, no, I'm not athletic, I can't go skiing, you limit yourself out of a picture of yourself from the past. So maybe your older brother was the athletic one in the family, and you judged yourself as not athletic. And then you limit today your experience of life out of these pictures of yourself from the past. Do you understand? Am I clear?
Perfectamente.
Yes.
Yo quiero preguntarle, ¿cuál es el sentido de limpiarnos o despejar vidas anteriores? ¿Para qué? ¿Cuál es el sentido? Porque yo tengo que recurrir a este cream. ¿Para qué tengo que hacerlo? ¿Puedo ser más feliz de esa manera?
What will make you happier is coming home to your true self. Past life experiences can help that because it gives you a little distance from the story. If you had all these other stories of all these other past lives, then this life is also just a story. It gives you some distance. Oh, I was not, after all, the high priestess or the cleaning woman. So I'm not really Rhea Powers either. This is also just an experience my soul is having as it moves through time in its own evolution. So for that, the experience of past lives is very useful because it brings you closer to the truth that you are not this package.
Esto es apenas un paquete. Yo digo, hay gente que vive muchos años y hay gente que vive muy pocos años.
Yes.
Algunos dicen, bueno, ha cumplido en esta vida lo que tuvo que cumplir. Y otros no logran en todos esos años cumplir con lo previsto. ¿Coincide usted con eso?
Yes. People have those reactions. That's true. I think we all die when it's our time to die, whether we like it or not. Some people go easily into that good night, as Dylan Thomas said, and others fight. But probably they fought other things in their life as well.
Ella es Rhea Powers. Ya venimos. Continuamos con Ria Powers y quiero preguntarle a Ria, ¿qué significa despertar el ser real? ¿Qué es el ser real? ¿Y cuáles serán los seres imaginarios? ¿Cuáles son nuestras esencias imaginarias?
We all have a false self, a shell that we develop during our childhood, and we think that we are our history, our story, our education, our background, our race, our sex, our nationality. We think that somehow we're a package of all these elements. Actually, we are being, we are spirit, we are completely the same, made of the same consciousness, and all of these little identities are the ego, the false self. They also cause pain because they are a contraction. I am this, I am not that, when in fact we are everything.
Usted habla de que no somos circunstancia, que no somos historia, que no somos biografía. Pero yo tengo que preguntarle, el espíritu, ¿de qué está armado y qué son o cuáles son los factores que lo condicionan? Porque si yo no soy mi lugar, mi familia, mi historia personal, mi espíritu, ¿en qué consiste? ¿De qué manera está armado?
Well, I guess the closest we could come would be to say consciousness, awareness, being. But I understand that underneath your question, there is the obvious truth that our history makes an impact on our soul. So if you would imagine...
Claro.
Yes. So if you imagine a meadow in the spring with new little grass coming up in the sun, very fragile, and a person walks across the meadow once.
Qué lindo paisaje.
Yes. But what happens to the grass? A person walks across, the grass gets bent, the sun comes, the rain comes, slowly the grass comes back. If that person walks across the grass 100 times in the same place, the grass stays bent. If a tractor comes and drives across that meadow, it leaves an impression. So if we had a difficult childhood, if our parents hit us, or our parents were sick or died, or there was difficulty in the family, an alcoholic, whatever, it makes an impression on the soul. And it's very hard for the soul to spring back to its natural identity, its true self, when we have a difficult history.
Si uno es la sucesión de vidas anteriores, y esas vidas anteriores tienen huellas, marcas o señales,
Okay.
Esa vida es una enorme cicatriz.
We have many scars on our soul, yes. That's very true. Who we are is not the results of our past lives, but our past lives have affected,
¿No?
yes, they have affected our soul. They've left an impression. And that impression will show up in our life today as a pain, as a fear, as a sadness. We carry that with us. And so if you do work on yourself, if you do spiritual work, you can move into that pain and understand it, feel it, and the grass springs back to its original form.
¿Vuelve?
Yes, because it's ultimately not who we are. Who we are is being. and that cannot be damaged.
¿Son los guardianes los que colaboran para que ese pasto vuelva a crecer? ¿Son los guardianes del alma aquellos que cuidarán que los pastos vuelvan a crecer?
Well, we have to be careful because we use the word guardian to signify inner critic. So the inner critic is not necessarily the friend of the soul. However, we do have inner guidance. We do have a voice inside of us that if we are relaxed and if we are open and if we're not so busy in our mind, that voice does guard us, yes, and it does guard the development of our soul. That's true.
Hay personas que en el universo interior, en vez de tener voces, tienen gritos, que son precisamente las huellas y las propias cicatrices anteriores. ¿Cómo puedo yo abrir las ventanas de mi mundo interior para que entre el sol, el aire y la vida nueva? ¿Cuál sería la terapia?
Well, there's no general answer to that question.
No hay una regla general.
Yes. In general, I would say the traditional meditation, whether it's a movement meditation or a sitting meditation, working with a teacher, someone you trust, is very useful, can be a useful guide on the path, an outer guide. Therapy is sometimes necessary. If the screams are too loud inside, then therapy is very useful as a step towards spiritual awareness. So there are many things happening in Buenos Aires as far as I understand. Teachers who come, teachers who live here, who offer work for people. That's useful. Mostly, if I were to make a suggestion to people, I would say, follow your heart. Go where you feel pulled.
Así como uno siente frío o calor, como usted lo acaba de señalar, ¿las terapias son individuales porque cada hombre y cada mujer son diferentes o puede ser grupal? Porque cada corazón y cada alma y cada energía es individual, singular.
Yes, it's a paradox. We are all unique.
A ver.
And we're all the same. So some things are universal for all of us, and some things require specific attention. So if, for instance, there was sexual abuse in the childhood or alcoholism in the family, that needs a particular kind of attention. But if you are talking about the truth of who we are beyond our story, that's universal.
Cuando uno piensa en limpiar o en despejar, siempre cuando uno despeja, algo queda limpio, pero algo queda sucio. Con el elemento que yo limpie, esto va a quedar limpio, pero esto va a quedar sucio. Aquel que limpia al otro o despeja al otro, ¿queda contaminado de las heridas del otro? ¿No? ¿Y cómo lo hace?
No.
Porque es mágico.
No, it comes from understanding the truth that ultimately there's nothing to fear. That ultimately, we don't have to protect ourselves because we're all one. We're all the same. So I'm not saying step in front of a truck.
Iguales pero diferentes. Iguales pero diferentes.
Yes, we're certainly different.
Estoy pensando, porque en las terapias tradicionales, en el psicoanálisis, Mr. Freud después va a su psicoanalista, Mr. Alter Freud, para que le pueda resolver su tema. Algún sacerdote, después de escuchar que alguien se confiesa, también va a buscar a otro sacerdote para contarle qué le pasó. En esto de ser terapeuta de almas, ¿usted a dónde va?
I have teachers. I have my own teachers. I'm a student of the Ridwan School in America, which is founded by Hamida Almas, and I have an individual teacher in the school, and that I think it's important that you always have a teacher, even if you are a teacher.
¿La vida enseña? ¿La vida es maestra en sí misma?
Of course, always. And I have a 2-year-old granddaughter who teaches me a great deal.
La fórmula es vivir, entonces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lo mejor para usted, Ria. Lo mejor para usted.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.